for the vice president, we understand might not report until tomorrow. And Maricopa, which is the county where Phoenix is, we know is likely to report at least some of their outstanding ballots, but not until later tonight. So the story of Arizona is one where Joe Biden is going to win, but it's going to take us time and patience as we go through the counting. You might see, we would expect to see, and we will see a tightening of that margin throughout the day, but more favorable data will be coming in this evening and even into tomorrow. So just be conscious of that and be calm as you see that throughout the day. So let's talk about two other states that are still out there and still in play. One that is getting a lot of attention and that we are also obviously very focused on. That would be Georgia. This race, as we said the last time we spoke, is a true toss-up. And we are seeing this as of this morning, and I know the Secretary of State just had a press conference, we are seeing us continuing to cut into the advantage that Donald Trump has. He is leading by about 18,000 votes, but there are a significant number of outstanding ballots that the Secretary of State just spoke to that we expect to be coming in throughout the day. Some counties like Fulton County or Atlanta is counted through the night. But we have a very good sense of where the outstanding ballots are, mostly coming from more Democratic-leaning areas, as well as from mail-in voters, places where the vice president has had significant support across the country. So we believe that Georgia, while continuing to be a toss-up, while continuing to be something that is going to be very, very close, at this stage leans to the vice president. And so keep an eye on Georgia throughout the day as we are, but I think we're heading on our path to close that 18,000 vote margin and potentially overtake it. North Carolina, the final state to speak to today, this race continues to be very tight. No real changes in terms of updated data, but we're staying on top of what's coming in, making sure that we have a very good sense of that, and we'll provide updates as we see throughout the day. So hopefully that gives you a sense of how we're approaching and thinking about the states. We are grateful to everyone who is doing the hard work of counting votes in these states. Counting votes and counting every vote is a fundamental tenet of our democracy. And we are so grateful for the hard work that's being done, as we said, with people counting overnight and day after day. Keep at it, but doing a great job, and we're grateful that work. This is happening, this is what's happening right now. This is how we are looking at the morning. I think the story of today is going to be a very positive story for the vice president, but also one where folks are going to need to stay patient and stay calm. The counting is happening. It's going to take time. We need to allow it to get done and done well. And we're very confident whatever happens with the counting and the timing, we will come out ahead. We are absolutely confident that Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. And we are equally confident that we're going to be able to watch the counting throughout the day and into tomorrow to finalize these last states that are going to put us over the top to 217. So with that update, I'm now going to hand this presentation over to Bob Bauer to talk a little bit more about how we are looking at Donald Trump's efforts in these final hours and the strategy that we're putting forth on our behalf. So Bob, over to you.
Thank you, Jen. I just wanted to put into the right sort of frame and perspective what you are hearing from some of the states about Trump claims and Trump lawsuits. And I think they're connected. The lawsuits are meritless. They're intended to give the Trump campaign the opportunity to argue that the vote count should stop. It is not going to stop. And I'll walk through some of the silliness behind these claims momentarily. But I want to emphasize that for their purposes, these lawsuits don't have to have merit. That's not the purpose. It's not to bring bona fide claims before the courts. It is to create an opportunity for them to message falsely about what's taking place in the electoral process. And to go to Jen's point, it's really quite remarkable. These election officials are working overnight, trying to get the count out and trying to get it right. And the Trump campaign is continually alleging irregularity, failures of the system, and fraud without any basis. This is part of a broader misinformation campaign that involves some political theater You may have heard about some loud noises being made by Trump supporters at the polling places, the shouts of stop the vote count and the like. Well, be aware that wherever this is happening, and it's happening inappropriately at close proximity to the polling place, law enforcement and election officials are clearing the places quickly of this kind of behavior and assuring that the vote count can continue. But all of this is intended to create a large cloud that it is the hope of the Trump campaign that nobody can see through, but it is not a very thick cloud. It's not hard to see what they're doing. We see through it. So will the courts, and so do election officials. Now, let me just close by saying a little bit so that you have some grounding in what these lawsuits seem to be about. Let's take 3 examples: Georgia, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. So let's take Georgia. In Chatham County, the Trump campaign showed up to allege that 53 late arriving ballots were mixed with ballots received on time. What was the evidence of that? Well, a Trump observer expressed some suspicion about something that may have happened when that observer left the room. That was it. That was the sole purpose of it. The sole basis of it is sort of an expression of suspicion. So the Trump campaign requested that Georgia counties separate any and all late arriving ballots. Well, that's interesting because that's what election officials are already doing, because that's what the law requires. So you have a suspicion that is expressed as the basis for a lawsuit demanding that election officials do what election officials are already doing because the law requires it. I think it's kind of comic, but that's what's involved. Another example comes from Michigan. In Michigan, the Trump campaign filed suit alleging that Republican inspectors should have been afforded the opportunity to witness the collection of ballots from drop boxes, and they asked for the counting to be halted. Well, the collection from the drop boxes was conducted by trained election officials, precisely as provided by law, and the claim is completely meritless. It's a messaging exercise. It has no other purpose than to confuse the public about what's taking place and to support their baseless claims of irregularity. Final example from Pennsylvania. They continue to file suits in this case. In many cases, they're litigating over issues they've already litigated. So they're kind of running out of ideas and they're recycling them. And in other instances, they're filing over utterly immaterial matters like where they may be permitted to stand and observe while the counting takes place. As another example, they've intervened in a pending Supreme Court case involving Pennsylvania, but their lawyers are already there representing the Republican Party. So they're intervening one more time with the same legal team to duplicate a filing that's already taken place to give people the impression that something important is happening in the United States Supreme Court, but in fact, it's not. It's the same old case with the same parties lined up, arguing the same issues. Nothing has changed. So let me just close by saying this strategy of disrupting the vote count, as you can tell by the efforts of election officials to continue to count, is doomed to fail. But in the background, the noise is fraud, irregularity, and the like. And the lawsuits and the disruptive behavior are all for that purpose of trying to get the vote counted, try to confuse the public about what's taking place. And we'll make sure the public is clear about what's taking place, and election officials operating under the law will make sure that the vote count continues. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob, and thanks, everyone. We're happy to take some questions.
We'll go to Hannah Trudeau first. Hannah, if you want to unmute yourself.
Hi, guys. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks for doing this. I'm wondering, Jen, if you can speak a little bit more in depth about why you feel as certain as you do about Arizona, and also curious if you've spoken or had any contact with the Trump campaign today.
Hey, Hannah. Yeah. So Arizona, we felt good about all along. It wouldn't be a presentation if I didn't say that I'm bullish on Arizona. Look, we really understand that this is a race that we've been ahead. We expected it all along to be close. And as we look at the data that's outstanding, we see a number of Democratic counties that are yet to report. Maricopa, as I said today, we do expect the margin to be closing. We knew that, and we had seen that even coming into election night after we started to see the results. So this is the trajectory that we have been headed. We will win by tens of thousands of votes, but that margin will close. And as I said, Arizona and Nevada, I think there'll be some bounce throughout the day, and the margin will tighten, but that's what we've been expecting all along. And the only challenge with Arizona is the data. Now, if we understand it as we currently do in terms of timing, it could be tonight, and as well as Pima coming in tomorrow, and more of Maricopa tomorrow as well. So it might take a little bit longer to get there. We have not had contact throughout the day, and we're just plugging along with our focus on making sure the votes are counted and that we're pushing forward here.
We have Alex Jaffe next.
Hi, guys. Thanks for holding this call. Jen, I wanted to check in, since you are expressing confidence at the ultimate result of the election, if you guys have started ramping up transition planning, and if you can speak about sort of what that looks like imminently, what you're planning to announce in the coming days after the race is called, if it is called in your favor.
So the good thing is that I'm the campaign manager, and so what I'm focused on is getting these final votes done. We're very focused on making sure the counting goes on. The vice president is continuing to do the things that he's been doing every step of the way, not losing sight of the fact that COVID cases are rising day after day in this country as well, and making sure that he's briefing on that. So we're going to just continue to focus on the campaign and closing out these final states.
We have Chris Smith next.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for talking. One for each of you. Jen, given where the counts are, is there a state you think is going to come in first and get you over 270? And Bob, we haven't seen, well, have you seen any evidence of the Attorney General, Bill Bauer, getting involved in any of this maneuvering on Trump's side, and do you expect to see it?
So just to that first question, to be honest, I don't know. I think that we are doing our best, like everyone else is, to get a sense of timing, and monitoring that. We will see more moving in a number of places this morning. Certainly, we know from an Arizona standpoint, the current timing puts us into tomorrow. Pennsylvania has a large volume of ballots to still go through, so that will take some time. So at this stage, it's not clear, when that final count will come and the timing, and we're just going to stay close on all of them.
As for the Attorney General, no, we have not seen any indication of any kind of unusual or concerning activity there. There'd be no basis for the Department of Justice to become involved. The conduct of these elections is the responsibility of the states, and as we can all see, they're perfectly capable of conducting these counts and also of enforcing order. And indeed, that is what that's what they're charged with doing. So this is a state matter, not a matter for the Department of Justice. And we see no reason to believe that fundamental allocation of responsibility is one that the Attorney General is planning to challenge in any way.
For our last question, we have Asma Khalid.
Hi there. Thank you guys so much. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. Two quick questions. One is, what is your sense of your sort of best sense of the remaining vote in Philly? And then also, I know there was an iteration of this kind of ask, but amongst the remaining states, do you have any sense, if you could sort of rank them for me in terms of your level of optimism, if you feel just where you think they are, if we could rank North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Pennsylvania?
So, Pennsylvania and Philly in particular, I know there's a lot of uncertainty about the exact numbers there. And I know there's a few different narratives kind of swirling online. There are hundreds of thousands of ballots outstanding. We think it's probably in the 500 to 700,000 plus across the whole state. What I can tell you is that what we have seen in places like Milwaukee and Detroit and Pittsburgh, and we also expect in Philly is very high turnout. And so, we think that there is still significant outstanding ballot in Philly, but of course across the entire state. And as folks know, the vice president has been carrying very, very high margins with vote by mail in particular, and from communities like these. And so we expect that we will have a really strong showing today as the counting is underway. In terms of the states and optimism, look, I feel very, very good about all the states. I think North Carolina is a little bit tighter, a little bit tougher. We are looking for that moment in Pennsylvania and Georgia today where we see that ticker overtake Donald Trump. We think it's going to happen. But I'm confident in all four, bullish on all four of those states. I'm going to expand my statement on bullishness outside of Arizona, but we're very optimistic. And we don't really care which state takes us over the top. We just want to keep going and make sure the counts get done. And as I said earlier, the counting is underway. We know that it's going to take a little bit of time, and we support that. And we're just going to stay calm and be patient. And at the end of the day, we'll be situated well, regardless of what those early states are with the remaining.
This state, I care deeply about both the rule of law and voter integrity, like the rest of Nevadans and Americans. And we warned for the last few weeks that we could end up in a situation where Nevada decides the fate of the presidency. We warned that the Democrats changed this election system. They gave us mail-in ballots, and despite the fact that there are examples of thousands of ballots being mailed across this valley in trash cans in apartment buildings, people getting as many as 18 ballots to their homes, we knew these rolls were unclean, and we were told that signatures would save us from all fraud. But to date, we still have not been able to observe these signatures or meaningfully challenge a single mail-in ballot out of hundreds of thousands of casts. We firmly believe that there are many voters in this group of mail-in people that are not proper voters. In the last many days, we have received reports of many irregularities across the valley. We believe that there are dead voters that have been counted. We are also confident that there are thousands of people whose votes have been counted that have moved out of Clark County during the pandemic. Today, we have a voter, Jill Stokey, who was denied access to vote. She showed up to vote, and she was told someone had already cast